Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Over It. I'm Michelle Kinney. I am here with the lovely, the wonderful, the back in United States, Tara Setmeyer, and Julie Roginski, who is coming here to us live, I guess, from NBC, I think, right? Yeah. So, anyways, we wanted to come to you today. I know we haven't been doing Over It regularly as much on Wednesday, just because everyone is so busy. But luckily, the gods allowed all of us to come together today to talk about some breaking news. First of all, Tara, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. I am good, and I every time I leave the country, the shit hits the fan, and, I was gone for, what, 5, 6 days,
Right,
and
right.
here we are, but,
Last time
back
you
at it.
left, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and
Yeah.
you know,
I think the shit
I
just hits the fan every day, so you might as well just leave the country whenever because
I
it's not
know.
like you stick around. It's not like
I know, but, it was a nice quick trip. As you guys know, I went to see Jamiroquai. It was wonderful. I had a quick stop in Lisbon on the way back. It was lovely. Had never been to Portugal. I highly recommend. The port wine is amazing. The people are amazing. The food is amazing, and it's a beautiful city. So, I am back at it, though. You got to back to reality. So here we
Wait,
are.
I have to ask Tara before we get into it. Did you,
Yeah.
because I know last time you were in Europe, the people you were speaking to in Italy were concerned about the United States, had things to say about that, and I'm just wondering when you ran into people or maybe people heard you and your husband talking in an American accent, did they say something? Like what was the reaction?
Actually, it's funny you say that because we did a little like tour in Lisbon, and our tour guide was
Mm,
talking to us about American tourists and how he said that 90% of the American tourists that he's experienced this year have been against Donald Trump, and the
okay.
ones that were like originally supporting him. He said that they regret their vote.
interesting.
Yes,
Really?
I actually
Wow.
have him on video saying it. I haven't had a chance to post it because it's just been crazy since I
Yeah,
got
yeah,
back,
yeah.
but I have it, and he says that because I asked him, because now I was intrigued, right? I was like, "Oh," and he said, "Yeah." He goes, "They said that they never thought that he would do all of this," and I was like, "What did people think? What did they think he was gonna do?"
I
But I just
mean,
found
they thought he
that
was going to bring
interesting.
back down prices, Tara. Of course.
I
What else?
know. It's all about the price of eggs and affordability, which we're not allowed to say anymore because Donald Trump doesn't like it.
Right. It is
Yeah.
a new word and we're all just learning about it.
Right, right. You ever heard of this word? Used to be manufactured. Now it's affordability. Never heard of it.
Right,
No one
right,
ever
right.
used it
It's a
before. It's like,
beautiful grocery. It's an
yeah,
old-fashioned word.
yeah. So I found that to be interesting because I knew that we would have this conversation again. And even in Barcelona, there, folks were kind of like, ugh. And it was interesting. We did a little like a cooking class, and there was a couple there. They were an older couple, so we didn't quite know
Mhm.
what side they were on. And they made a comment about, oh, I forgot what it was, but it was like coded language also almost. We
Mm.
like, okay, we
Like
know what
trying to
side
suss
you're
it
on.
out.
Yeah.
Like, are you one
We
of
didn't
us?
know. Right. We didn't know. And I forgot what it was that they said that without saying. It's like, tell me you're not a Trump supporter without saying you're not a Trump
Right.
supporter. And
Yeah.
the wife said that, like made a comment. And it was my husband and I. And then there was like a group of 6 Black women from South Carolina and New York. They were
Oh,
all a
wow.
family. And so you had all of us. Then you had like the 2 older white Americans, and then there was a woman from Sweden and another one from Australia. So we
Mm.
knew where they were, but everyone was kind of side eyeing that other
Right.
couple. And then she made a comment, and we were all like, "Okay, good. We can all get along and cook happily."
Right. Especially when you're on vacation, like with a bunch of white Americans that you're just running
Yeah,
into. And we were on a tour in Normandy, and I remember looking at
right,
Joe and being like, I don't know. I was like, we're just not going to say anything.
right, right. So it's all good. It was all good. It was lovely, and quick trip in and out. And it's good to get an opportunity to experience what's happening outside the country and put it all in
Yeah.
perspective and kind of recharge a little bit. But it never ends. I mean, it's
No, never.
you're
Yeah.
never ever off the clock. I was constantly, still working, still monitoring what's going on. I did a couple lives. Like
Mm.
I can't unplug ever, which is not healthy, but you
It's
find ways.
not, but you
Yeah.
know what? At least you got to not unplug in a prettier, less
Yes,
chaotic
yes.
place. At least you
Did
had that. So
unplug, did unplug for the 2.5 hours that Jamiroquai performed and just
good,
killed it,
good,
but yeah,
That's
it
good.
was
great.
very cool. Anyway, breaking
All right,
news
fine.
today, guys.
Big furry
Yeah.
hat.
Did you have a Michael Wolf video you wanted to play?
I
Michelle?
do. So just so everybody knows, I mean, I'm assuming if you're tuning in, you're somebody who knows what's going on. But there are new emails that were leaked, or I guess released today by House Oversight, that implicate Donald Trump in the Epstein operation, saying that, quote, he knew about the girls. So let me just play this video quickly. Michael
I'm sorry.
Wolff.
Before you do that,
Yeah.
because I want to put Michael Wolff in context here. There were two
Yes.
emails also with Michael Wolff and Donald Trump that were released. One from 2019
Mhm.
and one from 2015. And to put it in perspective, in 2015, in December of 2015, Trump was already well into running for president. He was on the cusp of the Iowa caucuses, where he was vying it out with Ted Cruz. If you remember, he lost to Ted Cruz. He still to this day maintains that he won, but he was already a presidential candidate then. And that was one email with Michael Wolff. The other email with Michael Wolff was in 2019. This is between Epstein and Michael Wolff. The one in 2015 was that he said to Michael Wolff, I was never a member of Mar-a-Lago. That's bullshit. The one in 2019, I think, is much more startling. Effectively, he's telling Michael Wolff that Trump was in on the whole thing. And Michael Wolff is advising him, which is a little unethical, to say, to basically blackmail Donald Trump and to keep his mouth shut, because then Trump is going to owe him. At this point in 2019, of course, Trump is already president of the United States and most powerful man on earth. So it was very much in Jeffrey Epstein's interest to have Trump owe him, because this is when the walls were starting to close in on Trump and Epstein already.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to put that. Yeah, go ahead,
And there's
Sarah.
one more. There's one more, Michael Wolff, on that topic. There was October. I made a note of this one, October 29th, 2016, which is very notable because the headlines on that day were all about James Comey reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton publicly, saying, oh, the laptop and Weiner and the whole thing, where, of course, we all feel like that was a huge blow to Hillary just days before the election. And on that day, on October 19th, 2016, Michael Wolff says to Epstein, there's an opening here to end him. Are you interested? That's in there also. And we don't see the response. It might be in the tranche, but I was looking at some of the, quickly before we came on air, and that was one of them. And I thought that was a very interesting email as well. And also, apparently, according to Julie K. Brown, who's the Miami Herald reporter, who's instrumental in getting a lot of this out there in the public sphere, particularly around 2019, when they did a whole, 2018, 2019, when she did a whole series on this. And I was like, wow. She said that there were emails with Bannon and others. So there's a lot.
House Oversight said they're releasing more this afternoon. So
do you think that this is, I just want to get both of your takes. Do you think that the timing of this is obviously with Congresswoman-elect Grijalva being sworn in this afternoon by Mike Johnson, and this is kind of like, I dare you to try it. I dare you, one of you, to back out, Nancy Mace or whomever, to try to undo the 218th vote. Do you think that the timing of this has to do with that, or something else?
Potentially. Also, they're finally back in session. Don't forget, Mike Johnson has kept them out of session, so the House Oversight Committee could not act until they came back today. But I think your point is very well taken, Michelle. It didn't occur to me until you just said it. That I wouldn't be surprised if there's a tremendous amount of pressure over the last 5 weeks while they've been in recess for Nancy Mace to back out, because she is running for governor in South Carolina. And of course, she needs Trump's support in order to win that nomination. She's a wackadoodle. So she's really going to need all the help she can get. And I think that's probably right. I think part of this is, Nancy Mace's lowest hanging fruit for him, or maybe Lauren Boebert. And I think this is probably a signal to them to do the right thing. Whether it works or not is a different story. I don't think they care, but nevertheless,
doesn't mean they won't try, right?
Because they only have 4, right? There's 4 Republicans, and you've got Massey. He's not going anywhere. And then you have Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene's clearly not going anywhere. So what's interesting too about this, though, is that Nancy Mace is the subcommittee chair of one of these oversight subcommittees that subpoenaed some of this stuff. So how's she going to back out of that now? It's all very, very complicated.
Yeah. But don't forget, this is the woman who used to be really pro LGBTQ rights and now wants to check women's vaginas before they go into the
and it's like they're kind of
flip-flopping is not a problem for her, but yeah.
Right. And it's almost like they're laying the groundwork. I mean, maybe I'm just reading into this, like, oh, she's having mental instability, she's having problems, or like this is all going to be very traumatizing for her. Like, is that going to be part of the excuse why she can't, participate in this? Like, who knows?
Probably. They're shameless. They'll use anything.
You know what?
Well, right, exactly.
If you're going to protect pedophiles because you're triggered by some sexual assault that happened to you, then I humbly suggest that you go work with issues out in therapy, and maybe this is not the job for you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then there's that. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and play this Michael Wolff video. This was posted on his Instagram. I don't know, excuse me, 20 minutes ago, maybe. So it is brand new. And I have seen some comments in the chat about the connectivity issues, like blurry screens and stuff. And like, guys, I'm so sorry if our connection isn't good. And StreamYard, the platform we use, has been very, very glitchy in the last day. So I apologize in advance and retroactively. So anyways, here's Michael Wolff.
This morning, the House Oversight Committee released emails directly linking Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And in fact, some of those emails are between Epstein and me, with Epstein discussing his relationship with Donald Trump. I have been trying to talk about this story for a very long time now. And this is, well, perhaps we're getting close to the smoking gun. These two men, Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, had the closest of relationships for more than a decade. They shared everything. They shared their airplanes. They shared women between them. They shared constantly business and financial advice. It's curious that Epstein's relationship with so many people in public life has damaged them considerably. But the one person who he was closest to has not been held accountable. That's Donald Trump. I released tapes of Epstein talking about this relationship before the election to really little effect. But I think the fact that this is now foursquare on the agenda, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, is exactly where this should be. That is the question. What was Donald Trump's relationship to Jeffrey Epstein? What's the nature of that relationship? What did they do together? And anything, I think, that can bring us closer to an answer to that question is central to our time. Now, I think, as most of you know, I have commenced this lawsuit against Melania Trump, and I think that will allow me to ask the questions of her and also of her husband and of the many people that surrounded their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And at this point, I think we can all focus on the main issue, which is to get to the bottom of this relationship. This morning, the House Oversight...
So, sorry, that is not the central question. I think, I'm sorry, but it's not. There's a larger question that I don't understand why nobody has asked. I wrote about it on Substack today as soon as this came out. And maybe you had to work at Fox News to understand the timing of what happened. I think we understand what the relationship was with Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump. I think it is fair to say that they most likely engaged in similar type behavior. At the very least, Trump knew about it, but I think we could all agree that Trump probably participated in it. I think anybody who's not a full-on MAGA fanatic will agree with that. The question is not that. The question is the question that Jeffrey Epstein asked in one of those emails. And I don't have my glasses with me, so bear with me. But the big takeaway from this dump is an email between Epstein and Maxwell, where Epstein writes, and I quote, "I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted victim's name, spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." Maxwell wrote back, "I have been thinking about that." So a couple of things, thinking about what exactly and who's this police chief, what was Epstein 75% there to do? Was he there to expose Trump? Was he there to blame Trump? But I want to put in context of when this was written. At the time that these emails were written in 2011, Trump was a reality show star on NBC. He was hosting The Apprentice and mouthing off about Barack Obama's birth certificate. These emails between Epstein and Maxwell were sent the day after Trump's political profile exponentially rose with the announcement that he was joining Fox and Friends for a weekly segment. And that timing is not insignificant because that gig at Fox and Friends was widely understood even then as a prelude to a potential Trump presidential bid.
Yep.
And if you don't believe me, here's how the LA Times described it the day before Epstein sent the emails to Maxwell. The day before, quote, "The heartburn that a prospective Donald Trump presidential bid gives to other candidates will now be delivered on a weekly basis." In other words, even then, people understood that Donald Trump was a serious contender for the presidency. And the fact that Epstein is asking Maxwell why it is that Trump hasn't been exposed, and Maxwell is saying, "I'm thinking about that too," begs the question of who was powerful enough to protect Donald Trump, who at the time was gearing up for a presidential bid, but was still not as important as Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, Ehud Barak, people whose names have been mentioned already. He's just a reality star who's looking to run for president. Who is Epstein didn't know the answer to this. Epstein is wondering why Trump hasn't been exposed. Who is protecting Trump so much so that even Jeffrey Epstein was wondering who's protecting Trump? And the email was sent, again, it's not a coincidence, the day after Trump effectively launched his presidential campaign, not officially, but everybody understood what he was doing on Fox and Friends. He was gearing up to run for president. And that's how the LA Times portrayed it, and that's how the media portrayed it at the time. I was there, I remember this well, and that is the question that nobody's asking.
Well, there could be all kinds of theories on that, right? I mean, internationally, perhaps.
Right. I'm like, Russia comes to mind, but like
But I mean,
begins and ends there in my brain. I don't know.
Yeah, we've all been kind of hypothesizing about this and kind of laughing, haha, Agent Krasnov, all this other stuff. But the reality is you now have a man who went from being a private school teacher, a math teacher at the Dalton School in New York, making $2.50, to owning the most expensive piece of real estate in New York City, a private island in the Virgin Islands, private planes, a billionaire, by blackmailing people. I mean, that's how he got there for no other reason. And yet
what's his name?
Lex Wexner? Yeah.
Well,
the guy
him too. I'm going to get to that in a second. The Commerce Secretary, Lutnick. Didn't Lutnick say that he was a neighbor of his and that he said it like very flippantly about like, man, the blackmail, he had cameras in there everywhere or whatever. It was like, no kidding. I mean, what better way to leverage than to blackmail people who are, raping young girls and have a predilection for that? I mean, it's like, that is one of the ultimate pieces of compromise in any is that. And so people don't care if you like hookers or if you're into S&M or whatever, because that's consenting adults. Just like right. But when it's a kink or whatever, but when you're talking about underage girls and sex trafficking and this whole thing, that's another level. And so there was clearly an international cabal going on here that we still don't know the full extent of. And the fact that so many people have started to look into this, and the further down the rabbit hole you go, even with Ghislaine Maxwell and her father and Israel and the Russians and, mafias. And I mean, it's crazy. The media and how he, his media empire, her father, and then like how he died. And it's all really, it's like Hollywood script, but it's real life. And even though the Wexner part of this, we were listening to a podcast about Abercrombie and Fitch. I don't know if you guys know about this, but my husband and I had no idea that the head of Abercrombie was a huge huge trafficker, abuser,
which
but of
makes
men.
total sense by like
Right.
the people that he hired to work in the stores.
It was crazy. We listened to this like 8-part podcast, and it was unbelievable, and it was very similar. It was giving me Jeffrey Epstein vibes, but consenting adults though. But still, it was preying on men and people who wanted to be models, and like getting them in, and like some of them were drugged, and like sex parties all over the world using the Abercrombie plane. It was crazy. But guess what? Guess who else invested in Abercrombie? Wexner.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, I want to cross over here. Yeah, that's just me speculating. But this is a very, very ugly, interwoven, tangled, ugly web of powerful people, money, and it's international, and God only knows where this is going, which is why Trump and all of his people have basically turned the Department of Justice into his personal protection unit here to stop this Epstein information from becoming public. I mean, have we ever seen anything like this?
No, but I want people to just not sleep on this, that even Jeffrey Epstein was not quite clear who was powerful enough to keep Trump's name out of this. When Bill Clinton's name wasn't kept out of this, when Bill Gates' name wasn't kept out of this, when Ehud Barak's name was not kept out of this, when Prince Andrew's name was not kept out of this. It's not like Trump was a minor player. He was the number one TV show in the country. He was a celebrity. Yeah. So his name would have come up under normal circumstances. It's not like he was some like no
I feel like his name would have been the first one to be mentioned because
well,
like,
no,
of course,
he's not
you know
important
what I mean?
enough. But the point is, more important people, their names kept coming up, and yet his name did not. And Epstein is asking the right question: why not? Yeah. And if Jeffrey Epstein didn't know, and Ghislaine Maxwell didn't know, what the hell is going on? Because these were the blackmailers in chief, and if they didn't know why this was happening, and that's the question
some kind of CIA informant, which is
who is this?
Yeah,
who is this?
Well, you know what's funny? I've actually not shared this with either of you, so you're hearing this for the first time. So when I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, one of my best friends from college, who now runs the theater program at Florida State, was here staying with me. And we hadn't caught up in a while. And she's like, isn't this Epstein stuff just so crazy? She's like, doesn't it make you think about, I'm not going to say her name. We had this crazy roommate when we lived downtown. Let's call her Alice. She's like, do you remember Alice when she used to hang out with those old rich guys? And I was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, don't you remember? She had this really, really like rich guy who had private jets, and they used to go to the Virgin Islands, and she kept trying to get us to come with her. And I was like, wait a second, this is actually kind of ringing a bell, because we were about 24 at the time, and like actresses and bartender, it's like we were living the life. And she was like, yeah, she was like, and Alice would go on the private jet, and she would get all these gifts and stuff. She was like, I don't know if that's who it was, but it certainly kind of sounds like it, doesn't it? And this would have been like 2007, 2008. I'm just saying, like, if not him, it could have been in the circle, in the web.
Yeah.
But like, ever since then, I have been thinking about this, and especially now I'm seeing, it's kind of blowing my mind, like the closeness that any of us really could have had to this world in any, like through media, or whether it's just being a young girl, like, it's way too close for comfort, and it's so far reaching.
And there were so many opportunities to stop this, which is the infuriating part. I told you, my friends in Italy, the husband of my good friend who owns the properties there in Sicily, his husband is a restorer. He does like restores like estates and things like that. He's a carpenter type restorer and art stuff. And his client, one of the clients was worked for Epstein in the New Mexico property. and had reached out to him about doing restoration work at that ranch in New Mexico.
Get
And
out.
that's with the farmer sisters, that
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, they had heard some stuff that was kind of weird. And he was like, wait a minute, is that, he was like, you know what? That's okay. Like, I'm good on that. And that was back then.
Well, you want to hear a crazy story that I don't know if I've shared with either of you? I am friends, and I'm not going to share his name because he's very into privacy, but I'm friends with, I think the two of you know who this is, a very, very, very famous person. And he and his wife were at the private airport at, God, was it St. John? What's the big, not St. John, what's the big U.S. Virgin Island?
Oh, I don't know. I've never.
Yeah,
Anyway, it
doesn't
was
matter.
the British and the American ones mixed up.
Yeah. So they were coming from the British Virgin Islands. Epstein's plane island, of course, was Little St. John. You couldn't fly a big plane into it. So if you flew private, you'd have to fly at that time into whatever the U.S. Virgin Island big island is, and then either take a helicopter or a prop plane or something to wherever you were going. So if you're at a private airport there, I guess everybody kind of sees each other. And this person is quite famous. And this is going back, I forgot when, several decades, many, I think in the 90s even. He's told me recently that he said, I've been thinking about this for a long time. He saw Epstein on that plane, and Epstein recognized him and went up to him to introduce himself because, this guy is a very prominent person. And this person told me, and I got to go. I'm sorry. This person told me that Epstein was there with somebody who he could have sworn was Melania Trump. Except she was not Melania Trump at the time. She's Melania Naus, whatever the hell her last name is. Donald Trump was not there.
But that would verify Michael Wolff's story.
Yes,
that would verify Michael Wolff's story.
I think Michael Wolff is purposely suing Melania, not because she's threatening to sue him.
No, it's for discovery.
He knows because Epstein told him. Epstein told him.
Yeah, and then he can say it under oath.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit!
Wow, I mean, this is as if there weren't enough drama going on every day. That's like the country's going to hell, and these people are like driving it into.
Right.
This story is enough to take down like a lot of people. But the problem here is, okay, all of this comes out, then so what? The Department of Justice is run by Trump's minions. They're not gonna deviate from it. I think the only justice you'll find is hoping that the American people are so revolted by this that they demand the court of public opinion is where we're going to get any justice until we get these people out of power.
I want to be
not a motivation.
And
I don't know.
We gotta go.
One of many motivations.
Yeah,
I have to go. I'll leave it with this. There is no statute of limitations for child sex trafficking.
Yeah.
And I don't give a shit what the Supreme Court says. Nobody can say that Donald Trump, if he was engaged in this in his capacity as president. It will, if it happened, predates.
Yeah.
Of that.
And the point is that he's not immune. That's why you're bringing that up. They can't say he's not immune from any of it.
The Supreme Court will come up with a way to make him immune. But listen, I got to tell you, I keep going back to Bongo.
Bingo Bongo, right. Look on his face.
Never seen anything. He was white and said he'd never seen anything like this. Now, of course, ambition and self-preservation and financial considerations are the reason why he hasn't upended the whole thing. But Bongo is also crazy, which means that he acts emotionally.
Does he just blurt it out?
I don't know, but don't forget when they made 10, they had 1,000 employees of the Justice Department go through every single one of those Epstein files to see if Donald Trump's name, to look for Donald Trump's name. Somebody's going to speak. Somebody's going to speak. I believe that all of these have been destroyed. I believe they don't exist anymore. So I don't know how much we're going to get.
Somebody's got him.
But somebody's got him.
There's no way. Because
there's one employee of the Justice Department at least who's saying, I'm not destroying evidence. I don't give a shit what you're going to do. I'm not going to do it. I would be a criminal to do it.
Yeah.
And these are not all MAGA people.
We need an Alex Butterfield.
Yep.
We need Alex Butterfield.
Yep.
Well, folks, on that note, everybody's got to go. We got new people to see. Short show. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Tara, thank you so much for joining us today as well. And we'll see everyone next time. Bye, everybody.